Imagine paying 25% more for your favorite bourbon, seeing a rise in your grocery bills, or watching car prices skyrocket. This is the reality as the US ramps up tariffs on China, Canada, and Mexico. With inflation already sitting at 3.5% in 2025, these new trade wars could make it worse. Stay tuned to find out how this will hit your everyday life and why it matters for your wallet. In today's video, we're breaking down the latest round of tariffs imposed by the US on China, Canada, and Mexico. Starting in March 2025, the US slapped 25% tariffs on all goods from Canada and Mexico and bumped up China's tariff from 10% to 20%. But what does that mean for you? Well, if you've noticed higher prices at the grocery store, that's just the beginning. Experts are predicting inflation could hit 4 to 5% by the end of the year, and everyday items like food, electronics, and even alcohol are going to cost you more. So, how are these trade wars already affecting your life? And what could happen next? Let's dive in and break it all down. In early March 2025, President Donald Trump's administration followed through on its earlier threats and imposed significant tariffs on its major trading partners. The most prominent measure was a 25% tariff on all imports from Canada and Mexico. This sweeping tariff targets a wide range of goods, including agricultural products and manufactured items like electronics and vehicles. This move is part of the US's broader goal to address trade imbalances and what it sees as unfair trade practices. More notably, the US also increased tariffs on Chinese goods from 10% to 20%. This targets some of China's most significant exports, including industrial products, electronics, and technology-related items. These tariffs are aimed at addressing issues such as intellectual property theft and technology transfer, as well as reducing the U.S. trade deficit with China, which reached over $295 billion in 2024. For the average U.S. consumer, these tariffs mean higher prices on a wide range of goods. Take a trip to your local grocery store. Food prices are one of the most immediate impacts of the tariffs, with China imposing tariffs on U.S. agricultural products like soybeans, pork, and chicken. Expect prices on these staples to rise by 10 to 15%. Your weekly grocery bill will start to feel the strain, especially if you buy meat or processed food that relies on these imports. The 25% tariffs on goods from Canada will also push up prices on products like dairy and vegetables, which many U.S. consumers rely on. As anticipated, the U.S.'s tariff hikes have prompted retaliatory measures from China, Canada, and Mexico. These responses are already disrupting industries and the global supply chain. Let's start with China. In response to the U.S. tariffs, China imposed 15% tariffs on U.S. agricultural exports, including chicken, wheat, corn, and cotton. The more damaging move, however, was a 10% tariff on soybeans, pork, and beef. These agricultural products represent a critical part of U.S. exports to China. For instance, in 2023, China was the largest foreign buyer of U.S. soybeans, importing about 23.86 million metric tons. Next, Canada retaliated by imposing tariffs on approximately $30 billion in U.S. goods, which includes agricultural products, steel, and aluminum. Additionally, by March 25, 2025, Canada plans to escalate this to $125 billion in tariffs. Canadian tariffs specifically target U.S. goods like meat, vegetables, dairy products, and alcohol. The refusal to sell U.S. alcohol such as bourbon, wine, and beer will have a notable economic impact, especially in states like Kentucky, where bourbon exports to Canada amounted to around $43 million in 2023. Meanwhile, Mexico's response focuses on automotive parts, electronics, and agricultural goods, with tariffs already in place and others set to follow. The retaliatory tariffs are felt directly in our pockets. For example, Canadian tariffs on U.S. alcohol, including bourbon, wine, and beer, could make your favorite drink more expensive when dining out or shopping. If you're someone who enjoys a glass of American-made bourbon, the cost will likely increase by 25% or more. Similarly, Mexico's tariffs on U.S. automotive parts and electronics may result in delayed shipments of new cars and parts. Car prices in the U.S. could rise as a result, especially for models that rely on parts manufactured in Mexico. You might not be able to purchase a new car at the same price you would have a year ago. The delays in the automotive sector could also impact service times for repairs, causing frustration for drivers who rely on quick fixes. The tariffs are already beginning to affect U.S. consumers, who will see higher prices on a variety of goods. Food prices are one of the most immediate concerns. As China imposes tariffs on soybeans, pork, and chicken, American farmers will be hit hard, but so will consumers. Prices for pork and chicken could rise by as much as 10 to 15%, according to experts. The price of electronics is another area where consumers will feel the pain. The U.S. imported $127.06 billion worth of electronics from China in 2023. With these new tariffs, prices for smartphones, laptops, and televisions could go up by as much as 10%. This will make everyday consumer goods significantly more expensive. Automobiles, another major category of imports, are also expected to see price hikes. The U.S. imports over $202 billion in vehicles and parts from Canada and Mexico each year. As tariffs rise, car prices could go up by 5 to 10%. For many American consumers, this could be a painful blow. As of February 2025, the inflation rate in the U.S. was already at 3.5%, higher than the Federal Reserve's 2% target. The new tariffs are expected to push inflation up further, potentially adding 0.1 to 1% by the end of the year. This will exacerbate the cost of living for U.S. consumers, further pressuring household budgets. The trade war is causing significant disruptions for Canada and Mexico as well. Canada's industries, particularly those that rely on exports to the U.S., are feeling the pinch. Automotive parts and agricultural exports, which amount to billions of dollars every year, are especially vulnerable. For example, Canada sends about $19.5 billion worth of auto parts to the U.S. annually. The new tariffs could slow down this trade, increasing costs for consumers on both sides of the border. The alcohol tariffs are another significant issue for Canada. U.S. bourbon and wine exports to Canada, valued at $421 million in 2023, could be severely impacted. Moreover, some provinces in Canada are even removing U.S. alcohol from store shelves, making this an emotional and economic issue for many Americans in the alcohol industry. In Mexico, the tariffs are having a similar impact on key sectors like automotive manufacturing and electronics. Mexico is one of the largest suppliers of automotive parts and electronics to the U.S. If the tariffs continue to rise, these industries could face major disruptions, forcing U.S. manufacturers to search for alternative suppliers. This would likely raise the cost of production and push prices higher for consumers. The trade war isn't just an economic issue, it's a geopolitical one. The consequences of these tariffs extend beyond trade relations between the U.S. and its key partners. Nations around the world are observing these developments and adjusting their strategies accordingly. China may seek to expand its influence in global trade, particularly in emerging markets in Africa, South America, and Asia. With the U.S. shifting its focus inward, China could strengthen ties with countries like Brazil and India, which are now providing some of the goods that the U.S. used to supply. This would further reduce China's reliance on U.S. imports, reshaping global supply chains. For the U.S., continued unilateral tariff actions could lead to the erosion of multilateral trade agreements. The World Trade Organization, WTO, has long been the framework for international trade, but if the U.S. continues imposing tariffs without involving international institutions, it could undermine the global trading system. This could set a dangerous precedent, encouraging other nations to adopt similar protectionist policies, creating greater uncertainty in the global economy. In conclusion, the trade war between the U.S., China, Canada, and Mexico is creating significant economic challenges for all parties involved. The tariffs are already leading to higher prices for consumers, especially in key sectors like agriculture. electronics, and automobiles. Moreover, the retaliatory tariffs are hitting U.S. industries hard, particularly in agriculture, alcohol, and manufacturing. These tensions are not just economic, they are geopolitical as well, with China expanding its trade influence and the U.S. potentially weakening its role in global trade. The long-term effects of this conflict will shape the future of global economics, particularly if these protectionist policies continue. How do you think these trade tensions will affect your financial situation in the coming months? Are you already feeling the impact in your everyday life? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Your feedback helps us understand how these global issues are influencing people on the ground.